The DOJ tells Mueller to slow his roll. Hold your breath. The White House and Congress might have a budget deal. And get those scooters off my lawn. Bird takes flight. I'm Jamal Simmons. This is why you should care. The table is set for the long-awaited testimony of former Special Counsel Robert Mueller before two congressional committees tomorrow. Mueller is scheduled to sit before the Judiciary and the Intelligence Committees. Democrats are hoping to illuminate the 448-page report about Russian influence in the 2016 election. The testimony could highlight how Russia tried to interfere in the U.S. election, what evidence exists that ties the president and his allies to that effort, and how the president might have obstructed justice while the investigation was taking place. Republicans will claim there were no charges, and therefore this exercise is all a waste of time. In an 11th-hour move, the Department of Justice sent a memo to Bob Mueller reminding him to limit his testimony to, quote, the boundaries of your public report, unquote, and that matters from the investigation were covered by executive privilege, including information on the law enforcement, presidential communications, and the special counsel's deliberative processes. The letter was apparently in response to Mueller's request for guidance on how to handle issues concerning privilege or other legal bars that should be considered. This is why you should care. Most of the public hasn't read the Mueller report. This testimony might bring its findings to life for a television audience. The testimony might also be a dud, with Mueller responding to questions by simply referring Congress to pages of the report. Yeah. If the special counsel appears unduly constrained, some members of Congress could cry foul and accuse the DOJ of undue influence. Mueller's testimony begins at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, Wednesday. This might just be must-see TV. It looks like they have an agreement. The president and Democrats, in an effort to avoid another government shutdown, have come to terms on a budget agreement and debt ceiling increase for 2 years. We asked the Hill's editor-in-chief, Bob Cusack, to come in and tell us all about it.
Leaders in both the House and Senate have signed off on it. Now, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker, and the Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, they really were the key players here. And they got a deal that basically takes the debt ceiling off until after the next election, that we won't have a government shutdown in the fall, and it increases spending. However, conservatives are not very happy with this because there's been a lot of spending in Washington, whether that's on the tax cut or other bills, and not a lot of costs that are being cut. So they're upset, but will this pass? I think it will get the votes, yes.
So the Center for Responsible Budget is saying that this is going to add about $2 trillion, $1.7 trillion over the next decade.
Yeah.
A lot of people who ran for Congress in the House and a lot of conservatives ran to cut spending. How's that playing out in the Republican caucus?
Well, Jamal, it's remarkable because less than 10 years ago, that was what the Tea Party was. I mean, that's why they were created, to cut spending because of Obamacare and the stimulus. And now, not even a decade later, both parties really not running on cutting spending. Now, President Trump has indicated maybe this will be my second term kind of agenda. We shall see if he gets a second term and if he will actually go after entitlement spending.
Now, there's some political drama that I read about in the pages of The Hill, that perhaps there's a little bit of a fight going on between conservatives and the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, who did this deal without Mick Mulvaney, who was one of those firebrand conservatives in the House before he went to the Trump administration.
No, that's right. He's a founder of the Freedom Caucus, and Mulvaney was sidelined here. Both Republicans and Democrats we talked to were furious with Mulvaney because, remember, the Trump White House initially didn't want to break any of these budget caps. They wanted to keep all the budget caps in place. They had to back off because Mnuchin said, we got to raise the debt ceiling. They lost some leverage there because Pelosi said, well, if we're going to raise the debt ceiling, we need a deal. And in order to get a deal, you're going to have to increase social spending. But to the Republicans' win, they also got an increase in defense spending.
Okay, so let's get the bottom line part of the agreement here.
Defense spending up, social spending up. There are a few offsets in this bill, but generally speaking, this is a $320 billion bill. If you do it over 10 years, you're approaching $2 trillion. This kicks all the tough decisions on fiscal issues until after the 2020 election. So either President Trump in his second term or the new president will have to deal with another fiscal bill, but not until the summer of 2021.
And is there any money in here for a border wall?
No, there is no, and that's why Conservatives are not pleased with this. Matt Drudge, influential of the Drudge Report, has been highlighting that there's no money for a border wall. That will have to wait.
Those electric scooters have been popping up in cities all around the country, and riders are flocking to hop on for a ride. Transportation startup company Bird is reaping the rewards. TechCrunch initially reported Sequoia Venture Capital is launching a Series D funding round, which would increase the company's valuation to $2.5 billion. Despite enthusiasm among consumers, investors slowed their roll when it came to scooter startups because of unpredictable business models, the rate of vandalism, and theft. Regulators also came down on scooter companies with rules about fleet sizes, permitting, and speed limits. Rider safety was one concern. The company isn't divulging much about how much it wants to raise this year, but in 2018, Bird said it raised $418 million. Despite that funding, Bird hit a wall earlier this year and slashed 5% of its workforce in March. Increased competition is making it harder for scooter companies to turn a profit, and Bird's chief executive, Travis Vanderzanden, tweeted just last week that the company made $1.27 on every ride. Here's why you should care. If you live in a Bird city, maybe you've had to dodge one of the riders or scoot past a scooter left behind from a previous trip. Or maybe you used a Bird scooter to get to an event, between meetings, or just around campus. Some people even make a chunk of cash from recharging left behind scooters at night. With new funding, Bird can replenish scooters and improve existing models. They can also expand the number of scooters into new neighborhoods and new cities. If you love the scooters, be happy. If you hate them, I hate to break it to you, they're not going away. Expect more birds in your face every day. That does it for today's show. Let us know what you think in the comments section or join the conversation on social media using the hashtag WYSC, and catch more great content from Hill TV by subscribing to the Hill's YouTube channel. Just click the bell so you know more about what videos are coming up when we post them. I'm Jamal Simmons, and that's why you should care. Catch you next time.